And we are the Coalition, loud and proud, outrage porn-free, civilly disobedient media, broadcasting live at the Worldwide Coalition Radio Network, here in the dark of night, high above the hills of Providence, Rhode Island, or La Prov, the naked city, the city of, well, a couple 100,000 stories. This is a sort of a special impromptu version of the Coalition. Events that I've been privy to, if you will, over the last few months, developing situation here in Rhode Island, came to full blossom this week. First of all, a big shout out to super producer Jeremy, who got this going tonight. We ran into, as always, the challenges of independent media, digital media. They never seem to leave. It's magic. Throughout the dark, dread COVID, the Rona, as they say in the city, we've interfaced with literally hundreds of thought leaders, concerned citizens, activists. And tonight we're going to tackle a situation that's been developing, as I said, for months at the Twin River Corporation. Joining us tonight is Jenna Ruotolo. She is a dealer at Twin River. We're going to get a little bit about her background, the working conditions at Twin River. Just a little bit of disclosure. I've never been a big fan of the Twin River Corporation. To me, it's a terrible business model. I don't believe in monopolies, which is essentially what's taken place now with Twin River here in Rhode Island. I believe they represent a capital drain from Rhode Island. I've always believed that if you're going to have casino gaming, I personally have no problems with that on a quote-unquote moral level. I just think every business, every restaurant, every business that wants to offer casino games in Rhode Island should. But tonight is not about the politics of gaming. It has actually, quite frankly, this could be every company, with the exception of a key ingredient, and that is that this company operates, if you will, at the will and the benefit and the exclusivity of the state of Rhode Island. And in doing so, I believe, again, personal opinion here, occupies a much higher moral plane. The kind of issues we're going to talk about are key to every workplace. But when you essentially are working in an operation run by the state of Rhode Island for the benefit of the state of Rhode Island, an organization that receives millions of dollars of subsidies from the state of Rhode Island outside of the operating profit that they make as a casino, while that said same state of Rhode Island, in my opinion, preaches to small businesses, enforces environmental working conditions on small businesses that at times can be onerous. Yet at the same time, simultaneously, they seem incapable of doing it for themselves. There's a lot of twisted logic here, and there's a lot of confusion. So Jen has graciously agreed to join us late at night, if you will. We'll have this available for replay. Jen, welcome to the Coalition. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you for having me. And I just wanted to say thank you for all your efforts that you put in when you go to the weekly pressers with Jenna. You always ask those brave questions. And a little bit about myself, I'm just a shy person, and I don't like to create waves. But this week, when I saw the wellness and the hard work that my coworkers have in having their dreams and their wellness crushed, I decided it's time for me to be brave too.
And let's do a little bit of background here. How long? Tell us about your career at Twin River. How long you've worked there, and just give us a snapshot of the working conditions prior to the Corona crisis, and what's happened since then.
I've been at Twin River since 2015. I actually wasn't a dealer first. I worked in the back offices doing scheduling, payroll, stuff like that. Twin River expanded, as you know, and as you mentioned. So they needed to hire more dealers, have more on-site blackjack classes, and that's how I became a dealer. And I wish I can say COVID made conditions worse, but they really didn't. It was pretty much the same since day one. It's always been crazy and hectic, and just a lot of questions needed to be asked. And this, I think, just all these things that just happened, the lack of safety in my eyes, the COVID outbreaks that seem to never be talked about, questions about why is certain employees falling off the schedule and management not telling us anything, not informing us, hey, you've been exposed to a coworker that had COVID, go get tested. Just that's normal, and it's unfortunately we've got used to it at Twin River recently. There's a lack of water at Twin River, which that's why I always keep water with me now, because it's a treat to have water. They took away all this access to water, the bubblers, which that's normal. I understand that, but then they went out of their way to make sure that they took out all the water in the vending machines. And if we want water, we have to do a hike and a half to the furthest end of the building to get the smallest bottle of water possible. And if you're seen taking two, you get in trouble, like you kind of get with Gina some days.
I hear you. The with the onset of the crisis, one of the issues became, if you will, the operating hours of Twin River itself. And just for the record, I want to say this: I have visited during the crisis at the bequest and behest, if you will, I should say, of a variety of employees at different times of the day. And here's my comment: the people at Twin River work really, really, really hard for their money. I mean, I saw a relentless effort there in terms of the cleanup crews. The folks who are going out and doing their very best, and quite frankly, there weren't enough of them. And that's not a comment on their work ethic. These people were working their hearts out to make sure that Twin River was as clean as possible. I saw a relentless work ethic with the dealers. I saw a relentless work ethic with the folks who were the bartenders, the servers, all of the folks who clearly, and I'm not trying to just pump people's tires. It was the people, the employees, the feet on the street, the boots on the ground at Twin River work very hard, if you will, to make the customer's experience at Twin River as gracious as possible. They seem determined, despite some of the efforts at management, to generate that sort of casino world-class feeling that everyone wants to feel. When I grew up at a time when James Bond went to casinos in white dinner jackets, and clearly this is a much more, sort of a small city type of feel, but the people there work very, very hard. So let's set that as a backdrop, because it's the conditions and the issues we're going to talk about have nothing to do at all with the efforts, nor are my comments any attempt to deride the efforts of the people who work there, because it's clear they don't mail it in at all. And I visited probably 3 or 4 times at a variety of late night hours, earlier evening hours, and I saw that at every moment. I felt it was important to say that. So let's talk about before, working conditions before. First of all, if there was any one quote unquote, and I'm saying the air quotes, benefit to COVID, prior to that, this was a smoking facility, wasn't it?
Prior to COVID, things were better in some aspects. Obviously we were opened 24 hours. So I'm a part-time dealer, and I used to get shifts no problem. And I understand, due to COVID, we're only open limited hours. So, and I get the reason why I only get a couple shifts is because they can only schedule us, a limited amount due to casino needs, due to the restrictions. That's fine and dandy. Before COVID, we had the eligibility to have health insurance, which we needed, because if you went into Twin River Casino anytime before March when we closed, you couldn't see with the smoke. The smoke in that casino was excessive. And I moved to grave shift, which was operates at 4:00 in the morning, just to try to get away from some of that smoky haze that would burn your eyes. And now, when we kind of complain about the casino, about all the stuff that we're going through, a lot of management says, well, at least we're non-smoking now. It's like, gee, thanks. We needed a pandemic to get you to to get you to take the smoke away. And they're going to go back to smoking once the masks come off. And people still smoke in the casino. They try to sneak it. They try to vape. Constantly on the table, you're telling people, put your masks up. And I know that's every employee's issue. That's like Walmart and all the stores. They're always constantly babysitting. That's common. And now to lose health insurance and to be exposed to this stuff. So they also added 9-hour shifts. So dealers are getting last-minute schedules, which is causing stress on us. It's causing issues for us. But now we have 9-hour shifts. So we're being exposed longer to COVID. And I'll give EBS all the credit in the world. They work so hard, and I feel for them. It's unfortunate that we're going through this pandemic, and they're working their butts off so that the dealers and the patrons can be safe.
Right. Now, talk about a little bit too, if you will, how people are paid at Twin River. Now, there were some well-publicized issues with members of the Teamsters Union, I believe, about a year and a half ago with porters. But you've got essentially 4 or 5 different operating units within the Twin River. You've clearly got bartenders and servers who are paid, I would imagine, in a manner similar to bartenders and servers around the state. Again, you're looking at a smaller base wage, and at the same time, there's an incredible reliance on gratuities, tips. So, folks, when you go there, take care of people there because, again, these people work hard to make your evening special. But let's talk about dealers in particular, because you, in a sense, you and a handful of other people have stepped up to sort of represent dealers despite the fact there's a union. We'll talk about that in a minute. How are dealers compensated?
We are paid through tips. The casino would actually be embarrassed if they released the base pay that we're paid at. It's actually so low, I don't remember the exact figure. It's well below minimum wage. I believe it's even below federal minimum wage. It is that low. And that's how our PTO is pretty much paid out too. So if I was to take a week's vacation, which I can't now because the casino stripped that benefit away from me, but if I was to earn my PTO and take a vacation, it's punishment. You're getting paid below, I think it's well below $10 an hour. It might be below $7. I can't remember the exact figure. And it's a slap in our face because the union that we're forced to have agrees to this contract. Mm-hmm. They don't fight for us at all. They just take our union dues with glee. They took it while we were laid off. A lot of people thought, we might have some waived dues while we were closed. Mm-hmm. Nope. We had to. Even Planet Fitness gave me a break when they closed. Not my union.
So, and which union are you represented by?
LIUNA 7-Eleven.
And are they part of the Teamsters, or are they part of a big national union? I think, go ahead.
Honestly, I'm not sure. I know the union stewards are always very proud of their job, and they have a right to be proud of their job. But I think it's the laborers. Okay.
All right, the Laborers International. All right, fair enough. So let's give a perspective here. You're paid sub-minimum wage. You're largely dependent on tips. There was as part of Governor Raimondo's response to the crisis, in a belated way, and this is my expression, in a belated way, she was forced to respond to the unfairness of the casino being open while other private businesses were forced to close. So at one point in time, with the casino closed, were you collecting unemployment?
Yeah, dealers were eligible to collect unemployment from when we got closed down in March up until pretty much recently, a lot of the dealers, not me because I work another job, but other dealers, they're getting, if they're part-time, they're getting scheduled 2 shifts a week, and they're not even, some aren't even 8 hours. Some of them are short shifts, so they're working two 6-hour shifts. They're potentially working 12 hours a week. So they have so many dealers fully laid off and partially laid off. So they've created kind of a scheduling mishap. What they could have just done is lay off more and have more dealers working 4 days so they would at least be off the unemployment. Instead, they're kind of making them rely on the unemployment system.
So you've got this horrible situation then where you've got dealers that have been laid off who would have probably to a certain level preferred to stay laid off instead of being called back on this piecemeal couple hours a day here, couple hours a day here, maybe a couple hours a day there.
And they're variable days. As a part-timer, you have no guaranteed days. You get only some of these dealers have a set day off. Others, you could be working any 2 random days. Some of them only getting 1 day. Mm-hmm. And it's confusing because going further for the week out, you're like, well, I can't make any plans with my other job, or in my case, 2 jobs, because it's like I don't know when I'm working. It's creating undue stress.
Right, and let's look at the big picture here. You're not working for a local restaurant that's doing its best to keep the doors open, owned by a local proprietor who may not be taking a paycheck himself or herself in attempting to keep the business going and to attempt to do right by, if you will, long-term employees. We've had people like that on this show from local restaurants who are literally taking nothing from the business in order to keep what they see as their extended family together. In this case, we're talking about a corporation who, in the backdrop of the COVID, in the backdrop of the corona, has used the profits that they've made off of the backs of everyday Rhode Islanders, gone on something of an acquisition spree, while at the same time unwilling to provide basic health care for their employees, at the same time unwilling to provide a basic framework of employment, and at the same time making the state of Rhode Island millions and millions of dollars. Wow. How did we come to this? So, in the movies, they would claim this to be a terrible, terrible turn of events. So largely, folks like yourself who find themselves in this mess, if I can ask a personal question, how many jobs are you working right now?
Right now I'm working 3. And I have a full-time job that I'm doing Monday through Friday that I just started last week. And I have a lot of coworkers that I get along with, so I'm pretty it's pretty easy to switch my days because they don't want to work the weekends, and I can work the weekends. And then I work a per diem job where I just get called in here and there.
So you've managed to, if you will, create a support system of employment, which requires you to essentially work around the clock and be on call so that the state can make a lot of money. Twin River can make a lot of money. And at the same time, again, go on this acquisition spree. I'm a capitalist. I firmly, I'd love to hear stories of companies making a lot of money, except in this case, of course, they have a monopoly. And in this case, they seem to have no respect for the needs of their employees. Well, let's talk about working conditions post-COVID. Now, again, you've been handed this temporary stay of execution when it comes to immersing, being swallowed up by clouds of cigarette smoke and secondhand smoke. But on my visits, I didn't see management adequately policing social distancing. From your perspective, is management aggressively monitoring the social distancing that we've been told is so important, the gathering of crowds? Are they providing enough resources to keep the equipment, the tables clean? What are your thoughts and your coworkers' thoughts on that?
I do know in the beginning that there was a time when we ran out of the hand wipes to wipe down the tables. They actually were using the KFC that's no longer there, those little wipes that they give you with the greasy chicken. Clearly, they knew the error of their ways. They provided us with 3 masks that have the Twin River logo on them. You can only get 3. And if you bring your own mask from home, you get the old finger wagging at you, you know, where's your mask? But with these last-minute schedules, sometimes it's just hard to schedule doing your laundry. There could be a night when I'm working Saturday night from 2 to 10, but they only released the schedule at like 12 o'clock in the afternoon. So telling me I have to work at 6 a.m. on Sunday. So, you know, trying to get the laundry, I'm not going to wear a dirty mask. You're going to wear a clean mask, obviously. So I'm not going to, you know, do the shame wash in the bathroom sink. I'm going to make sure I have a clean mask. So I just buy one of those disposable ones. And then they kind of give you no, you can't have that. If some dealers want to wear those shields on their heads, which they actually make them go to their doctors and bring in a medical note, which you know, wear the shield over over a mask. They should be able to without having to pay a copay. And now not having insurance, they're going to have to pay a $200 doctor visit just to get a doctor's note in order for them to wear the device of their choosing.
Are they afraid by people in the dealers wearing those masks that they're going to intimidate people from actually gambling? Is that the fear? Has they expressed to you a reasoning behind that?
They actually, it was I went to a union meeting back in, I think it was August or September, and it was my first and my last union meeting that I will ever go to. And we did bring up why we have to go through these hoops in order to wear a mask of our choice. And they basically told us it's because we want everyone to look uniform, which I completely understand. You know, you don't want someone wearing an outlandish mask. But when it comes down to it, it's something that we're wearing on our face. It's not like we're wearing it. We don't have the most attractive uniform, but this is something that we're breathing into. And the fact that they can only provide 3, like, if you ask for them, they give you, oh, where's yours? Oh, well, I dropped it in the parking lot. Well, go wash it in the bathroom. No, just give me a mask. I'll pay you for the mask. I'll give you $5 or whatever the cost may be. Just give me a damn mask. Shouldn't be that hard. I mean, as far as overcrowding, I usually am not there late at night. Twin River actually decided when back in November, when they put the restrictions for 10 o'clock in the morning that we can be open till 10:30. Technically, the loophole was you can't be out of your house from 10:30 at night till 5:30 in the morning. So they said, all right, we're going to start opening at 6 a.m. Monday through, actually it's every day now. We're open at 6 a.m. every single day. Now, if you work for tips, and you go into the casino as a dealer at 6 o'clock in the morning, there's no patrons there. Because people don't really gamble at 6 o'clock in the morning. Why they did this, I don't know. I know they're going to get, as long as they can get an ass in the seat, it's okay for them. But usually it's for a couple old-timers going to play a slot machine. It's very scarce seeing a blackjack player at 6 o'clock in the morning that's going to be tipping your employees. When you tip them when you pay them less than garbage, and now you don't even pay them health insurance on top of it.
Right. And then let's talk about the facilities themselves. I mean, the interaction between you and the customer is not just verbal. You're not just exchanging glances and, asking them for their instructions. You've got cards being exchanged. You've got chips being exchanged. You've got money at different points of the facility being exchanged. What steps is Twin River, and have they been consistent on this, in sanitizing, for example, the chips? I watched in sort of horror as these seem to be kind of passed around. Kind of reminds me of, we all go to the bathroom at some point in our lives. We all wash our hands after the bathroom, and then we open the door with our hands You know,
I'll,
yeah.
I'll give
What about chips?
the chips are before COVID. They were disgusting. They were stick together.
Oh,
It was gross, and it turns out they never washed them ever, and that was within just years of dealing. They were just gross. I remember seeing something on it, and I was like, I don't even want to know what this is. And they would just say, well, put it on the bottom, so it just means it would be circulated less. I will say, since COVID, and I got to say, COVID was a blessing because we got rid of the smoke, which was a huge issue for Twin River, and now we forced them to have proper cleanliness. And so the EVS people, along with managers, after we close, I believe they're there. Well, I'm hoping they're doing it. The chips do seem better to handle anyway. So they actually soak them in a bucket for, I think it's like 4 or 5 minutes, and then they blow dry them down, and then they have to count them all back up. There is a lot of casino procedures that go to this. It's not just, wash them and then put them right back in. They have to make sure they verify the rack because there's a good amount of money in those racks, so chip money. So they do, the EVS people, I can't blame them enough. They do their cleaning. They've always done as much as they could. We have a hard working crew. When I went to other casinos, my birthday was a month ago, so I stopped at Mohegan, and I think Twin River blew them out of the water when it came to cleanliness. But other things, no.
How often are the chips cleaned during the day?
The chips are used, as long as there's a gambler on the table, those chips are pretty much always being touched. Like, you'll have about, on a blackjack table, we have 3 players. Mm-hmm. And most people buy in for $100 on the lower limits. That's usually where I deal to. And, so they each will have a full stack, which is $100. And there's usually about 600 stacks of red chips. So they're constantly being touched. Maybe some of the higher denomination chips aren't touched as much. But I feel safe. And they also do give us, if we want to wear the latex gloves. So we could wear those. I mean, I don't think if I'm going to catch COVID, it's not going to be from the actual dealing itself. It's just going to be in passing, walking by these people or being in the break room. We have 2 small break rooms. There was an issue with parking because they only had 1 entrance. They scan us with a thermometer. They ask us if we've had any COVID symptoms. We tell them no. They ask us if we came into contact, and we're like, well, yes, there was like 6 dealers 3 days ago that had COVID, so naturally, but they get mad at us and say, don't answer that question anymore that way.
Oh. That's not good.
Yeah, if you have COVID at Twin River, they rather you have an STD because they don't want anyone to know about COVID. There was the restaurant that opened up back in November, and they were very happy. It's a great restaurant too. There's blackjack dealers up there dealing. Great staff up there, everything. But they did have a COVID outbreak. They didn't want anybody to know, and it was they wanted to sweep it under the rug. And it's a little alarming as to why they're so scared to let anyone know that someone has it. And then you see Mark Crisofello, the vice president, on the news saying, we've had no COVID outbreaks. Okay, what's your definition of an outbreak?
Well, and here's the crusher, if you will. If in fact you're an athletic team and someone has COVID, you're shut down. If you are a teacher and there's someone even tangentially related to that group of students, effectively people are forced into quarantine. Our governor, to her turn of credit, was self-reported contact with individuals who had COVID, and she self-quarantined as the governor of the state. The responsible thing to do, if you will. And fortunately, in her case and in and the head of the Department of Health in both cases. Neither of them ended up becoming ill. But are you saying that effectively there's kind of a hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil at Twin River right now?
Yes, it's very much so like that. And I understand some people wouldn't want, like if I caught COVID, I would tell people, because I wouldn't want to be responsible for them to catch it because of me and then take it home to their elderly mother and it kills them. But I do understand some dealers do see, it's something you don't talk about. So, they wouldn't say anything. But at Twin River, they seem to have gone out of their way with it. There was a dealer that had it a couple weeks ago, and it was a couple. One was allowed to work, one wasn't allowed to work. And I felt bad because I know they're shy, and why they live together. So if the husband has it, obviously the wife has it. They make up these weird rules, and it makes a lot of the dealers feel uncomfortable. There are some elderly dealers that work there, and I'm sure they're, wondering if they're safe.
Wow, that's stunning.
You can get it, but your wife can't.
That's absolutely stunning. Again, my interpretation, of course, of what you're describing is an organization that is so loss averse that they seem to be creating their own set of rules. Yet we've got situations across the state where small, locally owned businesses who certainly generate their fair share of taxes and income to the state, but since they don't operate on such a grand level as the Twin River Corporation, and their individual contribution will not shut down the state, whereas Twin River is alleged by many to be the third largest source of state revenue, that we're hell-bent to keep them open regardless of the circumstances. Now, your union, if you don't mind me asking, I mean, typically, what does it cost a month, ballpark, to belong to your union?
The exact figure is $40.
All right, so you're spending roughly $500 a year, for the privilege of being in the union. Is that mandatory to belong to the union, to be a dealer at the Twin River Corporation?
Apparently it is, and I recently just wrote a scathing letter to the manager of my union because there was an incident 2 weeks ago when one of the lead stewards basically point out blank said that only the full-time day one dealers' voices count when it comes to voting on things that we're allowed to talk about. There was a promotion that we wanted before COVID, and the union shot it down. And a lot of the dealers wanted this promotion. So for the lead steward to say they asked and polled these select individuals who happen to be full-time and day one dealers was pretty discouraging as a part-time dealer, because I know I have a loud voice, and I know there's over 200 other part-time dealers that also have a voice. We don't have to have our way, but just the fact that we want to be heard. So why are the stewards even telling us we don't count, we don't matter, it's only the full-time people that get to vote on things? And to be honest, that steward was lying, because they also wanted it as well. It's the union that didn't want this promotion to happen. So I wrote a letter to him, and I didn't expect anything, and that's what I got. I got nothing. So it was a Friday that I wrote it, so it ate at me all weekend. So on that Monday morning, I got my laptop out, and I made sure I let Craig Squalos, who is the manager of Twin River, know that he is allowing a union to be operating and be allowing a bully, basically, to be operating on his property. And why? And I even said, I don't want my dues to be taken out of my paycheck anymore. If they just want the $40 as a charity donation, I'd consider it. But for me to pay dues when I'm being told by the stewards that you don't count, what am I paying for?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not getting benefits. I'm not getting insurance. I'm not getting them to fight for me. Just this week when we lost the insurance, when you go through the hallway to get to the floor to go deal, you see the list of all the news. And it shows the long pages that say uneligible to enroll. And it was page after page. And then when you scroll over to the left, you see a small list that says eligible to enroll. And it's the day one dealers, and I'm not making fun of them. They worked for it. They put their time in. They deserve their insurance. But then you see there's a bunch of every single steward who works for the union retained their insurance. And some of them would have anyway because they were day one dealers, but there's part-time dealers on that list as well. Mm-hmm. And I like them as people, but it's not fair that they get less shifts than I do because it goes by seniority and I have more years under my belt than they do, yet they got to keep their insurance when there was 186 part-time dealers that were scrambling to get their hours because we were lied to. We were told we would keep it, and that's the controversy. That's what we're mad about, is we were lied to about the insurance.
Right.
We were told upon being laid off that as long as you averaged 30 hours a week, which is what our contract states, that's where the anger is. And the fact that those part-time dealers, part-time stewards, got to keep their insurance, it makes us wonder what other perks this company between our union and Twin River have. They definitely aren't fighting for us. Mm-hmm. That is clear. They made that crystal clear when our insurance got taken away. And they never even sent a memo out to let us know.
Was there any explanation as to why something as critical at a moment in history when healthcare is more important than anything, given the expense one would incur if, God forbid, one became ill with COVID? Was there any justification for the removal of your eligibility to I'm imagining, pay for insurance? What is an average? Is there, and again, I know it's difficult to say this, but from your perspective, what was insurance costing you per month, roughly? Were they paying for all of it, or was there
we were lucky. They were paying for all of our insurance. I'm not sure about the married plans. I know the married people or family plans, they kind of complained a lot, so I'm not sure if they had to pay something. Mm-hmm. But as a single person, mine was free. And I'm not stupid. I know insurance is very expensive. I worked in HR before, so I understand the cost. However, when we first reopened that last summer, that was the hot question on everyone's mind. We all asked, since I'm back, first of all, what's the COVID procedure? Which they gave us a little quick, make sure you wash your hands. If you don't feel good, let us know, mm-hmm. nonsense. But they all said, don't worry, your insurance will be all set as long as you work 30 hours a week. This was the setup. They set us up for this. In order to have insurance, they didn't tell us this part. You have to work in a 6-month period, 30 hours a week for 26 weeks. They accounted for the 3-week pause. So the magic number is 690, it is.
Right.
So, but it doesn't say that there was never discussion of this in June when we restarted, or August when I got rehired, or September when a lot of the other dealers got brought back. There was no memo. There was no union letter that was sent out saying, oh yeah, by the way, make sure you get your hours. There was no possible way. So if you're a dealer who got called back in August and we're operating on limited shifts, there was no possible way. So in the beginning, in August, I was getting like 3 days a week. So I was getting about 24 hours a week, something like that. Mm-hmm. I would pick up shifts from people any way I could. I offered money. I did whatever I could. I said, if I can get your Tuesday and your Thursday, I'll take your Sunday next week, so you have the weekend off. And full-time dealers were okay with giving us days because they also thought as long as they were helping us out by giving us 30 hours a week, we would all have insurance. We're like a family because we work these oddball hours. We are like a family. They wanted to help us. We thought we were going to get insurance. Then we find out this week boom, sorry, nope, you're screwed.
Wow.
186 of us.
And when you're talking about that many people, the odds of and you know, this
that's just dealers. It's not just the dealers that they picked on. I'm hearing it's a lot of departments throughout the company.
Right, but in terms of the dealers, let's if you will, when you talk about 186 people as a sample size of a population, the odds of someone tragically becoming seriously ill with either COVID or any one of the other, you know, it's not like cancer or diabetes or any one of these serious illnesses has magically gone away during the corona crisis, and people still sadly get very ill. And from what you're telling me, you know, you have people who think they've got healthcare eligibility and they don't, and they're finding out haphazardly. I'm just wondering how in a relationship so critical that it is seen as a key component of funding the very existence of Rhode Island government itself, how is it possible to operate in such a half-ass way to the severe detriment of dedicated employees who are grotesquely underpaid while simultaneously performing the most challenging physical work, if you will, in a sense. And again, that's not to diminish your environmental people or anything else, but in a real sense, being a dealer is a craft. And you've got this weird chemistry where, you know, you work for the house. The whole point of it is the house is supposed to win, and yet you rely largely on tips from people who statistically have little chance of long-term success. How does that work? I don't know if I've ever heard anything like that. It's ludicrous.
The way you put it, yeah, it's comical almost, and it's maddening. And then it's also maddening knowing that when we were laid off in the beginning from March through June, our contract was up in June. So our contract's expired. They have not negotiated our contract. So when they knew the deadline was coming up while nothing was open, it's not like you can go on a vacation, you couldn't go anywhere, you couldn't do anything. Why weren't they doing the negotiations then? I don't know if there's something going on behind the scenes that nobody knows about, but the fact that they had months of doing nothing, then we expired our contract in June, and now we're almost in February and we still don't have a contract. And there's been a lot of violations in the contract, and it's amazing how they just keep letting it go because there's that one small line that says management's rights, like the fact that we get those last-minute schedules, even though our contract states otherwise, how they did the callbacks of dealers. It said it was supposed to go by seniority, but they brought back almost all the full-timers, but then they started bringing back some of the part-timers.
Mm-hmm.
And the dealers didn't want to make a big stink about it too much in the summer because unemployment was paying. It was summertime. Who wants to go to the casino in the summer? But now they realize, oh, shit, I lost my health insurance because of this grievance on the contract, violation on the contract. And then you tell the stewards, and they're like, oh, we're working on it. Working on what? Nothing's ever been resolved. It seems like dealers are the ones constantly making the phone calls, making the emails to, Craig to get things done, just to get the parking lot to be open during a snowstorm because they want us to only use one door. It's ridiculous. We had to email him and be like, look, we're going to fall and trip. It's going to cost you more in workman's comp case than it would cost you someone to pay minimum wage to stand at the other door to take our temperature. It's nonsense. They give us one 10-ounce bottle of water. Nonsense.
What you're describing, if ultimately the employer, and let's remember, and I'm just going to project here, if you will. Ultimately, the casino is managed by Twin River. You're an employee of Twin River, but ultimately the casino is an operation of the state of Rhode Island.
Yes.
So
and that's what they blame. The managers constantly blame, and even the union. They always say, well, you can blame your governor on this one. Yes and no. Like when I was saying with the schedules, they give us our schedule last minute because they're begging the state to let them open more tables or let them open more hours. So they give us the shit end of the stick by giving us a schedule last minute. What they could do is just give us a schedule with an asterisk saying subject to change. Most people would rather have the headache of a change in schedule versus a last minute schedule, in my opinion. And I'm pretty sure most of the dealers would agree on that.
Right. And if you're not being paid a living wage, given the decline, if you will, of tipping customers and the fewer hours, they also put you in a position where it's virtually impossible to schedule other work or other part-time jobs if you're not so fortunate in a very difficult economy. This is not a great time to look for, a generic job to plug the hole that this has left dealers in financially. So essentially what they appear to have done, and I have to tell you, the focus, the skill, and and just the general consistency in which they are screwing their own employees is kind of awesome. I mean, I don't know that I've ever seen such a comprehensive approach to screwing around with the lives of people who, again, I'm going to go back to the very first statement I made, who are some of the hardest working, most dedicated people I've ever seen. Again, I sat there for 2 hours at that big bar in the middle, the one that I got a little nutty about with the governor, that they could stay open until midnight while everybody else had to close at noon. I mean, or 12 or 10 or whatever. And I watched people for a good 45 minutes. Literally, there was 3 of them, your environmental people, scrambling from table to table, just trying to keep up with the transition of customers. Quite frankly, from my perspective, there's a bunch of employees. I'm just going to say this to any Rhode Island employer who's listening. There's a hell of a group of people who are willing to do incredible things on behalf of their employer, and call them up and hire them. Set up a job fair, guerrilla job fair in the middle of the one of these cavernous parking lots at Twin River, because it's an astonishing group of people who seem willing to do just about anything to overcome these situations, and are successful at some level despite the best efforts of Twin River management and the Twin River labor union.
That's what we should relabel them. Just they're hired and paid for by the casino.
Oh my God!
And they represent we always call them the stepsister casino, but Tiverton, that's owned by us as well, and they got stuck with the same union. They didn't even have a choice in the matter.
And
so they also lost insurance as well. I don't know their number of dealers.
Right. So anecdotally, from what you understand, just through contacts over there, they're being challenged by the same issues.
Yes. I know they are, because a lot of them reached out to me on social media. So right. I do know they're going to. They have the same exact union. We have the same managers basically. They have a separate one. Most of them transferred anyway, but it's all the same stuff. They just wear a different shirt.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And now we have so many other casinos, because Twin River buys up a casino in every single podunk little town across the country.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like they're can't afford to pay the insurance.
Right.
And it's not like I even asked. I didn't expect them to just pay for my insurance. They didn't even offer us a way to pay for our insurance. Like say, hey, unfortunately, you were shy 3 weeks of the operation to be eligible for unemployment. Would you be able to chip in for your insurance? I would have gladly. And I know there's some people with diabetes on our my shift. There's people with a heart condition.
Right.
They would have gladly paid for their insurance. No memo, no option, no resources to say, go to health stores, go to COVID, nothing.
So, and you bring up a valuable point there when you talk about health source. Typically, when you have an organization, and By the way, your parent company is making money hand over fist. But let's just say in a normal environment where you've got a company that might be, whose fortunes might be declining, they may be facing closure or partial bankruptcy. They're facing challenges. So theoretically, what should happen is the human resource department of that organization reaches out to an organization like HealthSource, the states, as the health insurer, if you will, for private companies of last recourse, and say, okay, what can we do here? How can we keep our employees safe and insured during this period when we're reorganizing as a company or we're facing these difficult times? That's so, has there been any outreach by the human resource department at all?
No, there has been no communication from them. They didn't even send the memo out yet. They only did was post a picture of the printout that said who's eligible, who's ineligible, and posted it on the walls. So if you weren't working this week, you wouldn't even know until you go back to, like me, I work there on the weekends. Mm-hmm. I only know about the list because everyone tells me. You wouldn't know until you went to work today and be like, oh, I lost my insurance 3 days ago. Well, actually February 1st we're losing it, but you wouldn't have known. And they didn't even reach out to say, oh yeah, by the way, you're losing your insurance. Don't worry, everyone else did. But this is what you can do. You can contact your state marketplace, right, or you can contact whatever it may be. So it was just scary that they don't have any kind of communication. And that's been ongoing for a while too. There's been a lack of communication. When there is communication, it's a lot of times wrong or frantic, almost like someone's having, I kind of made fun of them, like Trump tweets, like they were just nonsense.
Martial music
when Encore was opening up, we got memos about the traffic patterns of Boston. Don't move to Boston. It's like, what the heck does this have to do with our casino in Rhode Island?
I just want to reach out and read some of the comments from people. Jeff says human resources has been so hard to get in touch with too. Kim talks about Twin River also received PPP money. Thank you. That's wow. Thank you for the compliment. We don't get any from them. We're just a number. I'm not the type that's going to blow smoke. Back before this, when I had a life and I traveled a lot. To a lot of places, for work and things like that. I'm a pretty frequent flyer. You really get a feel very quickly when you walk into an establishment and you get a sense of whether people have the right spirit to be involved in hospitality. There's an attitude, a work ethic that comes from people who work in hospitality, and you get it right away. And I definitely get that every time I've walked into Twin River. It's wow. This is, and in a sense, I keep repeating myself because I'm just stunned. I've lived in this state for 30 years. I'm used to the can you top this mentality. There was an old game show, can you top this? And astonishingly, Rhode Island seems to find a way to top it every time. When you go back to any one of the Cool and Warmer or UHIP or any one of the variety of scandals just from the last few years. Go back in time. Remember when people were getting done for parking tickets that they'd paid 20 years before then and had no way of proving, and so had to come up with the money again while this nonsense has gone on forever. But again, it's all about perspective. This is a moment in time and a moment in history where we're in crisis and there's a fragility to life. And what I mean by that is that, we're all sort of on the verge. The age-old saying is there, but for the grace of God go I. We all know people who've gotten seriously ill with this disease. Many of us know people who have passed away. And maybe if or not from the disease, but certainly the presence of the disease exacerbates very difficult medical conditions. We routinely pay testament, as we should, to people who are first responders who are, by dint of their career, have to spend a great deal of time in direct contact with people who are ill. Given the patterns of this disease, the gestation, if you will, of this disease, how it evidences itself over time, and the fact that so many people are carrying the disease and yet they still don't have, the physical evidence of it yet. It's lying in wait, if you will. the folks who work in hospitality at Twin River are front and center with these people individually. And I compare that. I've stayed at a few hotels lately. I'm a big fan of Hilton hotels because they keep things so clean. If I walk into a Hilton hotel, there are 3 levels of protection for that employee, as there should be. And let's compare it to the ultimate example, folks who work at high levels for the state of Rhode Island. A lot of these offices are closed. People are able to work from home. Now, I don't wish on anyone having to be in a position where they're face-to-face with folks who are potentially ill. I don't wish that on anyone. But when we talk about human decency and fairness, we're talking about an organization that is ultimately an organ of the state of Rhode Island, a significant revenue source for the state of Rhode Island, as they remind us all the time. Yet they are quite willing to put you and your coworkers, your family there, in direct contact with people who are potentially seriously ill, despite the fact that that is contrary to every single thing they preach to the rest of the state. The folks who work at Twin River are the ultimate example as do as I say, not as I do. I doubt, and you'll forgive me for this rant, but I'm just outraged, I doubt that at any one time the governor or her family or any of the significant poobahs at the Department of Health, Commerce Corporation, and the variety of organizations that seem to leech off the state of Rhode Island would put their family or their employees or their friends in the type of working conditions that you have described. And they certainly wouldn't do it without health insurance. It is simply outrageous that they are willing to place all of you in a position where, in order to make them the do-re-mi so that they can keep their bloody 6-figure jobs going, it is outrageous that they would put you in a position so precarious that if you didn't work effectively for the state, you would probably be shut down.
Yes.
For the love of God. It's just disgusting. It really is. You've been kind enough to say that, since we got in touch, you've listened a few times to different shows that we put on the network. We've had a couple people who have businesses in the state. We had the gentleman who stood up to the state and runs some beautiful health club facilities. We had the folks from the restaurant business who operate very large, sophisticated restaurants, both of whom, even prior to state involvement in this, prior to any of the corona or the COVID crisis, worked overtime to maintain clean, safe facilities, proper food handling. The laws that are attached to either of these industries, health clubs and or food sales preparation, are onerous, expensive, and difficult. And yet the state of Rhode Island just, again, blithely dances through the tulips. What's morale like at the Twin River?
I don't even want to admit how low it is. The problem is it was always low. And my opinion of Twin River was low before, and my morale for the union wasn't as low, but now this week it reached point bottom. But for the rest of my employees, I think it is fairly low. I think there's probably at least 300 dealers, give or take. I would say we only do it because we love our patrons, we love the people that we deal to, our direct managers we like, our supervisors. Most people in table games department we appreciate. We know they're working hard. They're under the same stress we are. But it's just from HR, uniform department, it's just very low. We know security does the best to, tell people to, put their masks on and stuff like that. But it is low. And then just to have this blow of, sorry, we lied to you. We set you up to fail. If had I have known back in August when they called me back and I asked, because when you're called back, they have like a little conference. They have your union steward, a person in the scheduling department, and a table games manager. And I know I asked, and I know a lot of people ask. The minute they call you up and they give you the little, spiel saying, oh, you'll be back on such and such a date, this and that, we all asked about the insurance, and we were all told, don't worry, you'll have your insurance. Just work your hours. Make sure you get average 30 hours a week, which we did. We did it by hook or by crook. If I only worked the 2 days a week that they were scheduling me, or the 3 days a week, I would have just done that, and then I would have found another job back then, and I'm sure a lot of other people would have done the same thing, or they would have just worked the 2 days, not hustled to pick up the extra shifts, and then they would have been able to go on state medical, and that's what they're all doing now. They're going on state medical.
Right.
Well, most of them.
Right. Well, I mean, first of all, I'm grateful, Jen, that you and you've got from afar. I've watched this over the last couple of months build up, and there's a lot of folks who you work with who are very courageous. Not only are they working hard at their jobs, but their willingness to stand up in an environment where we know that is difficult. Rhode Island is not known for its warm treatment of folks who passionately advocate for their rights. And I know that is put yourself personally in a challenging position. And so I congratulate you not only for your efforts and your coworkers' efforts on behalf of your fellow employees, your brothers and sisters, if you will, as they're supposed to be considered at a union. But I also appreciate folks' willingness to stand up to forces that can be larger. That takes courage. And all of you have shown that, like I said, by your daily work and by being outspoken. We'll certainly, from our perspective at the coalition, do everything we can to share the story that you've told and to, Monday morning, light up the phone lines. We've got a new governor in town, allegedly, Mr. McKee, who is governor on hold, governor in waiting, if you will, until the current governor decides to, quote unquote, do the right thing. She's been accorded an international position. Many folks have come to the conclusion that in anticipation of the efforts necessary to fulfill her testimony and the prep work to assume that position, that it's time for her to resign. Not in disgrace or anything, but a simple acknowledgement that it is impossible to prepare for the job she's assuming and be responsible for situations like this. It's just simply not possible. Quite frankly, when folks weren't gearing up to go to D.C., they didn't do a hell of a good job at situations like this. We need someone who is going to dive headfirst and just clean up this mess. You do not work for a quote-unquote private corporation per se. You indirectly work for and are a major source of revenue for the state of Rhode Island in and of itself. And quite frankly, you all deserve a whole hell of a lot better than this nonsense.
We are the number one dealers in Rhode Island or New England.
Yeah.
That's what we always are reminded by our bosses that we should be proud of.
Right.
Just no pay to reflect that.
No, and we're talking about basic dignity and essentially workplace safety. And I'll just, for one more time for the record, I would hazard to say that if a private company, a truly private company, was engaged in this type of pernicious behavior, that the full force of government would be dropped upon them and, let loose the dogs of war. Companies that have shown even the slightest inclination to revolting based on the onerous rules that have been placed upon them during this have had huge fines levied upon them, extensive legal fees, and are further threatened in their existence. And it's just terrible. My heart goes out to you. You folks deserve a whole hell of a lot better. let's keep in touch over this. If folks, I just want to say for the record, if folks in your organization want to write letters or stuff like that, I would be honored. I think, first of all, they need to direct the pressure to Mr. McKee, who's the new sheriff in town. It's clear, based on the governor's behavior last week, that she's all set. Well, God bless her. There's an old Irish saying, don't let the door be hitting you on the Irish on the way out. But, it's clear Mr. McKee is the new sheriff in town. And if they do send him letters, I would hope they would copy me, because I will certainly publish and bring to every person. And if next week's press conference, if I have to staple them to myself and walk up and down the aisle in front of Capitol TV, I will. And I intend to ask the head of the Department of Health, how the hell, under her watch, could these conditions be allowed to be maintained? So my only advice to all of you is that, if I can paraphrase one of the great movies of all time, one of the most significant film noirs in American history, and of course I'm talking about the Blues Brothers, unnecessary force in the apprehension, if you will, of Twin River management is fully authorized. And I say that with a smile. Listen, nothing but the best for you. And let's keep the lines of communication open. Independent media, in the aggregate, can do a lot to raise hell, because we still care. And the conventional media may or may not be interested in it based on relationships that exist, but we certainly are. How can folks reach out to you? Is there a Facebook group or a website, or is there I know you guys are sort of in the infancy of responding to this, but how can folks reach out to within your organizations to address this?
They can find me. I mean, my coworkers know me in the break room. I don't blend in with my surroundings, especially my coworkers. I'm pretty well known at work. I don't know if it's for good or for bad, but I think everyone pretty much knows me. But if anyone wants to reach out to me, they can find me on Facebook. I'll like the page, and then they can find me on your page as well. I'll comment if they want to reach out to me. Or you can give them my contact information if they private message you for it. Okay.
I just posted in the thread on this my personal email. Again, if folks want to reach out and anonymously send us their statements, letters, we will responsibly respond to them and continue to promote your efforts. Listen, Jen, thanks for joining us tonight. I know it's late. I know you have to get up in the morning.
Thank you again so much.
No, and again, God bless all of you. You deserve better. On that note, we are going to sign off. We're going to clean up a little bit of the technology here and present this to share to people. If folks want to reach out to me, I have put my email address at the top of the thread, pford@coalitionradio.us. I will always keep messages, letters confidential. I take that to heart. I do not, if you will, out or dox people, and I do not publish anything that they want unless they expressly say to me, Pat, listen, could you share this with your social media circles? Can you share this with the other folks that you work alongside of in independent media in Rhode Island? You have to proactively say, Pat, I want to get this out there. So it's entirely up to all of you. I am at your service. We are the Coalition, loud and proud, outrage porn-free, civilly disobedient media broadcasting live on the worldwide Coalition Radio Network at coalitionradionetwork.com. Please like us at facebook.com/The Coalition Radio. Please follow us on the mighty Twitter at @Coalition_radio. You can find all sorts of interviews we've done. We've been on the air for 8 years. You can find our older stuff at coalitionradio.us. Take a moment, like us and share us if you find us interesting or challenging or social media is in fact the mother's milk, if you will, of independent media. It's how we get our message out above the noise. Thanks for all of you for listening tonight, and for folks who are listening in the coming days. Our hashtag on this show is very straightforward. Hashtag take it personally. All of you need to take this very, very personally, whether you be involved directly or not. Your fellow Rhode Islanders are at risk by people who seemingly are intractable, incapable of basic concerns for people who work for them or work alongside of them. That needs to change. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Night, guys.